Hey guys, this isn't like my normal videos. This isn't like an instrumental type thing, or it's not an original song, or it's not even a cover. This is just kind of what you can get with different sounds and effects. This is all the pedals I have because my amp is a modeling amplifier and it has built-in effects like, you know, your standard chorus and phaser and flanger and delay and stuff like that, except I'm not going to be using much delay or reverb. This is kind of what the guitar sounds like without anything on. You know, just kind of a dry sound with flat EQ. So the first sound I'm going to do is kind of an interesting one that I saw Juan Alderete do from the band Mars Volta, and what he did is he had a vibrato pedal, and you know, you all know vibrato sounds kind of weird, and some people might not use that a lot. This is what the vibrato sounds like. You know, so it's a warbly sound. It's one of those effects that has a lot of warble, but it's like a pitch shifting pedal. I consider it to be a pitch shifting effect, but what I have here is a full tone octafuzz. Now, if you're familiar with Jimi Hendrix's Purple Haze solo, you'll know exactly what this does. It adds fuzz, and then it also puts your signal an octave up. And you combine that with the vibrato, and it just has this really weird effect that you might hear from like a science fiction type thing. It sounds really cool. So that sounds really cool. It just has a really weird, like, you know, science fiction feel to it. You know, that's kind of what it sounds like to me. So this next effect is taking combining a tremolo effect and a wah. So, you know, once again, this is my that's my guitar with no effects. Now I'm gonna add a tremolo, and this is kind of a faster tremolo, and I found that turning the depth up all the way kind of has that, you know, in and out effect, if that makes sense. So you know, it just has that fluttering effect, kind of. But you combine that with a wah, and it just has this really nice sound. Sounds like a computer almost. Maybe not a computer, but it sounds awesome. Let's try a slower tremolo speed. Kind of, yeah, something like that. So that sounds awesome. I actually used that for that kind of effect for one of my original songs called Scanner. It just has that really interesting sound. Yeah, it just sounds amazing. This next one kind of has a lot of controversy, and what I mean by controversy is like there's a lot of videos explaining whether to put the wah before the fuzz or whether to put the wah after the fuzz. Most people prefer to put the wah after the fuzz, but as you can see, I switched the pedals around just to show you that if you put the wah in front of the fuzz, it has this really awesome, like, sweeping synth sound. It just sounds just crazy. This is, you know, that's guitar with no effects. This is the guitar with an Electro Harmonix Big Muff, which is what I use for fuzz. And as you can see, it's pretty gnarly. It has a lot of scooped mids, and then when you put the wah in front of it, it's just crazy. Here, let me just give you an example. Yeah, oh my god, it's just brutal. So that I think that's cool to have the wah in before the fuzz. Now, what you can also do is, instead of just using a high gain fuzz like the Big Muff, what you can do is you can add an octave fuzz like the Octafuzz. As you can see, the octave works when there's not that much fuzz in it, but when you do this kind of effect, try to just, you know, just boost the gain on it, and then try it. It sounds really cool. Dimebag Darrell actually used this trick sometimes. Now let's try. Now that kind of sounds similar to the Big Muff. Let's try, you know, dialing back the gain and just having the octave, you know, by itself. Didn't really sound like it had much gain, but I mean, you get the idea. You know, it just sounds really raspy, and it just sounds more like a synth to me. And I use that effect in my song called Malfunction. And there's also another effect that I use for Malfunction that is really going to be awesome. Okay, so this is a guitar cable, and I use this in my song called Malfunction. I used it for the intro. This is actually pretty cool. What you do is, like, you just have a regular cable like this, and you just put your finger over the top of it, and you just have a static. And what I did is I looped that, and then I played over top of it, and it sounded like a siren going off, or like an alarm that something was, you know, something bad was happening. You know, now that I think of it, I haven't tried it with effects. Let's see what happens when you put on a fuzz. actually sounds pretty interesting. It obviously makes it sound more fuzzy, hence the term fuzz. Let's try it with the octave fuzz. That actually sounds pretty cool. You get the octave. You can obviously hear the octave in that, and it just gives you like a really sputtery sound. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do something with phaser and flanger. Now, some people get confused with these, but how I think of it is that phaser is more of a warmer sound, whereas a flanger is very bright. It almost sounds like flanger almost sounds like a chorus to me. So this is a flanger. That's typical flanger sound, but once you pair it, if you pair it with like any fuzz pedal, it's just gonna sound insane. So this is with the Big Muff. So if you notice, it thins out the phaser effect. Like if I play it without the Big Muff, it sounds very warm and full. But then when you add the Big Muff, it's still warm sounding, but it sounds much thinner to me. It doesn't sound as full as before. Let's try it with the octave fuzz. So as you can hear, it kind of sounds similar to Big Muff, but obviously with that octave in there, it sounds very raspy and just very filthy. Okay, so now I'm going to try these effects with a flanger. Just so you know what a flanger sounds like. It sounds like this. So it sounds more chorusy to me, if there's even such a word as chorusy. But let's try the Big Muff. Let's try the fuzz pedals with the flanger. That's the Big Muff. This is the octave fuzz. So as you can see, to me that sounds very, very synthy also. It's obviously very heavy with the Big Muff, but it sounds more synthy with the octave fuzz, probably because of the octave, the upper octave, but I mean it just sounds really awesome. So, if you're if you're in an experimental band, I guess just try as much things as possible to get different sounds. I know I've used most of these sounds before in songs that I've done, so just try to mess around with like effects and stuff and see what you can come up with.